Great to have you here.
I had decided I wanted to get into events.
Don't rush into anything.
Left university and pretty much went straight into it.
It's just got to happen. So do what you need to make it happen.
I've never been one to follow rules.
We've spent a lot of time together, haven't
Yes,
we?
we have.
Always keeping up with trends and fads.
How do you manage that, the expectations versus the reality of budgeting?
It's always insightful to get a gauge as to what their reference point is with budget.
Pre-COVID, I didn't know what Zoom was.
You know, everything is done to a higher level.
That detail Jeremy and the band and the guys will go into, by definition, makes our life easier.
There's levels and levels, and that comes in the detail. Welcome back to another episode of The Secret World of Events. And this week we are going solo. I'm joined by my very special guest, Aarti Ramu.
Hi.
Did I say it right?
Yes, you did.
Oh, that's very good. Aarti, now, we ask our special guests to invite two friends to join us. Who have you invited on to join us today?
I've invited Paul Jackson, who works for The Recipe. MD, right?
I am.
MD of The Recipe, catering company.
Welcome, Paul.
Thank you.
And my really good friend and work colleague, Sophie Kaye, who is the owner now of Ruth Kaye Designs.
And we love Sophie, don't we? We've known Sophie for a very, very, very long time. So just to say, Sophie is in the invitation and stationery world.
Correct.
At the very, very top. And in fact, if I wind myself back 13 years, you did my son's bar mitzvah.
I think I remember.
Yeah.
Been in the industry too long.
Yes, you did that one. And Paul, I've known you now for a number of years because I think for every job I've done abroad recently over the last few years, we've spent a lot of time together, haven't we?
Yes, we have. Yes.
Aarti, going solo. Talk to me about Aarti going solo, designed by me.
So I've been working in the events industry for about 20 years now, I think. 20 years.
Since you were 12.
Yeah. I will not talk about my age. And basically an opportunity came about when I was employed with a company that decided to change the way they were working. So they kind of liquidated, and it gave me the opportunity to make a decision on whether I try and be re-employed full-time or go solo.
Now, you've worked for some of the biggest names in the industry, haven't you? I mean,
Yes.
your history and your name board of people you've worked with is pretty epic. I mean, tell everybody what your experience is.
Well, my very, very first events role was at Banana Split.
Okay.
And it was a very fluky decision where I had decided I wanted to get into events, didn't know how to do it, I had no experience. And the Banana Split van drove past me when I was walking to the station to go to my boring city job, which I hated. And I took the number off the side of the van and called them. And within 2 months, I think it was 2 months, they gave me a call and said, "Do you want to come in for an interview?" And I think I got the job on the spot. When I went in for the interview, we got on really well. And and then I was actually thrown in the deep end because I had just started, and I think within 3 months they had the biggest job they had ever been given that they were producing, and I was just thrown in the deep end. So it was a sink or swim kind of moment.
And you swam.
And I swam.
Beautiful. Here you are 20 years later.
Yeah.
Paul, your background stems from the catering side of life, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I first met you when you were with Alison Price.
Yeah.
Amazing and fabulous
19
caterer.
19 years I did there.
19 years.
Yeah.
And we did some incredible jobs with Dream Events.
That's right.
For those ones.
Dear Matthew.
Yeah, indeed. So just tell us a little about your background and what you bring to the events world.
Oh, gosh. Trained as a chef. Never actually chefed professionally. Worked as a butler in private house. Gained all my sort of like discretion and sort of those sort of skills that come in handy all the time. Worked on a yacht. Opened a hotel in Tokyo. What else?
God, there's a little bit of diversity going on here. Open
and then at 24, I joined a company called CSCs, which were privately owned.
Yeah.
And I learnt all my skills with an amazing, bonkers chap called Freddie Mennel, who's sadly no longer with us, but he was my mentor. And so I did 5 years there. Then I worked for Oliver Payton for 6 months, which was insane. And then I joined Alison Price in 2001. And then from 2001 until 2020, Yeah, pretty much.
And now you're with The Recipe, who we also know well.
Very well.
So what is it you're bringing to The Recipe?
It's been a massive change there. So they were, obviously, the Lansky brothers owned it, and they sold out early part of this year, and retained by a privately owned entity. And I've just come in as MD. So there's been a massive change. We ended up with no staff, and I started in September as a team of 1. And I'm now recruited, and we've now got a team of 3.
I'm very excited to see you back on events, if I'm being really honest.
It's a massive opportunity, and I'm loving it. Thought I'd never, ever want to do catering ever again in sort of 2020.
Because the times I see you, on the jobs I see you, it is literally the upper echelon, Aarti, of the events world. You've been on those events with us. Whether we are at private weekends in Greece, whether we are, in the depths of Italy, and your role is very vital, even though you're not necessarily doing the cooking or in charge of the cooking.
I suppose it brings my knowledge to the fore, and I'm there to support and just have an eye. I think that's why I was taken to Greece and Italy, because of just my general sort of eye of what needs to happen when, and it's just preempting all those sort of, we need to be here now because that's going to happen. It's just that experience that we all gain, and we all have that. It's that sort of cross-checking for the client and cross-checking for whoever you're working with. And for
event anxiety, I call it.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. It is, because you're just there to be that safe pair of hands. That's all they want.
Well, also it's the experience, isn't it? Because we're so used to the high-end clientele expectations, and each job we work on, we learn something new each time, and we bring that to the next event every single time.
Absolutely. And you get to sometimes escape all that, don't you, Sophie? Because the way you differ is a lot of the time your work is done prior to the event, isn't it?
Yes. I have a mixture, to be honest. Similar to you, actually. I often produce in advance and deliver in advance of the event. But if I'm working with one of the higher end event companies, I'm often asked to come on the day and set up in case there are any problems. So there have been situations where I've turned up to an event with a calligrapher because the guest list was not complete, and they have to produce there and then at that
on
moment,
the spot, right?
Because we have no guest list, we don't know who's coming, we don't know where they're sitting. It's just got to happen. So do what you need to make it happen. So, I've bought printers on site, as in physical printers. I've bought calligraphers on site. I've bought, every time when I turn up to these events, if I go to them, I've got guillotines, I've got double-sided tape, I've got everything just in case. But you are right, in advance is majority.
Yeah. Now, you now take over the running of the company after your mum's sad passing. How is that, the responsibility of because your mum's brand name of Ruth Kaye is synonymous with the very top end of the events world, the quality.
Yeah.
How do you carry that forward?
Honestly, it's the event anxiety. It's the same. I'm constantly got complete inferiority complex and don't believe that I'm good enough to do it, but somehow it just works out and I just manage it. It's just, it was a lot of responsibility. I pared the business right back, pretty much started from scratch. We had a really lovely retail outlet in Primrose Hill. The lease came to an end the week after my mum passed away, which is just very strange timing. We'd been in Primrose Hill for 15 years.
I remember the venue.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
It's gorgeous.
And I was just like, I just don't want the responsibility anymore. It wasn't even a financial decision. It was just, obviously it helped and it was lovely, but I just didn't want that responsibility of having this huge premises. And, we all went through COVID. We're all in events. We know that actually it doesn't have to be from a retail outlet, and it can be something that's, done without that. So we work in a slightly different way now. The responsibility is still huge, though.
Well,
it's huge.
Responsibility in events is ginormous across the board, which brings me back to you, Aarti, because as a planner, it's huge, isn't it?
Huge.
The dealing with some of our clients can be very, very testing at times. It's unbelievably rewarding as well.
Yes. But
give us a flavour of what is it you most love? Why you're still doing it? You're now solo. What sort of drives you to get up and go for it?
Do you know, a lot of people ask me, because I've been doing it for so long, I think all I can say is the passion that I feel for each event, because each event is different. And I think in terms of the companies I've worked with, and the clients that we've all worked with, each brief is different. Even a wedding, we've done 1,000 weddings, but no wedding is the same. Everyone has their own take on what they want. You can advise based on other events that we've done. Again, it's just about our experience and bringing that experience to the table, and hoping that your client, it's they trust you, they trust me. They trust me to ask the right questions with the suppliers, pull it all together, bring everyone together, work as a team, and make it work on the day.
I think people buy people.
Yes, agreed.
You could be selling sand.
Agreed.
You could be selling tarmac, but they would buy because they believe that you can deliver it.
Agreed.
And also, we get thrown so many problems on the day in the run up. There's so many. It's all about troubleshooting in my job, I think, and I stay very calm.
Very calm.
Very, very calm. And it is the one thing that every single client tells me afterwards. You just stayed calm the entire way through, and that then everyone else feels that calmness. I don't know.
So even if you're combusting inside,
yeah.
Which does happen to all of us, because we all do that word, event anxiety. We do all get it. We do all walk into that party, however professional we all know we are and capable. You do get the butterflies thinking, okay, guests are coming in 10 minutes.
It's the fear. For me, it's the sound check. When the sound check happens, I completely freak out. That's when I get really anxious.
For me,
is that your countdown?
That's when I'm like, right.
For me, when I'm doing a wedding, once the procession goes in and those doors close because the wedding started, then I relax.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I hate that bit.
Funny enough, I'm a bit like that with weddings. Once the ceremony's done, I feel like everything else, because everything is live for us. Yes. This is not although it's a film set for us, and although for you guys it's a running set, it doesn't happen again. If something happens, it happens live. Yep. You have to adjust to it live. If I don't know, a lighting goes out or the music stops or whatever it is, you have to deal with it on the spot.
Deal with it.
And experience in that, I guess, is key.
It's
for what you do.
Showtime, isn't it? It's showtime 100%. When you're all juggling with 25 balls in the air, and and if you drop one, there'll be some. If you've got a good team around you, and you have the right people, then there's that sort of reassurance that someone else will pick that up and make it work.
Paul, can we talk specifically about the recipe? Because as I said, I'm super excited that you guys are back. And you have been in and around sort of the world of the events with the sort of Jewish side of things as well. Yeah. How do you think sort of the catering from the sort of kosher caterers compares these days to the likes of, Alison Price, the recipe and others?
I think there's some good... I think everyone's moved on, have had to move on, because people still love their food, and I think there's some healthy competition out there where we, as a non-kosher caterer, sit against a kosher caterer. There's some great new names that I haven't only sort of recently come across who are great, and I think that can only be good for the industry.
Yeah, I think the creativity has definitely been pushed up.
Definitely. Yeah. And especially in the kosher catering world.
Well, outside of kosher catering, with the likes of Paul, it was always there.
It was always there.
It was there at a more reasonable price probably as well.
Understanding. I couldn't comment on that. But it's understanding what the sensitivities are, I suppose.
Yeah.
And how you can make it work without it becoming an issue before it becomes an issue, I think, probably.
Aarti, for you, if I was to say to you budgets and clients, how do you approach and deal with budgets for clients? Is it sort of the elephant in the room when you start a conversation? Is it something you need to sort of ascertain where people are?
As a freelancer over the last 5 years, I've actually learnt from mistakes in the past of not dealing with that situation immediately. So now, within the first meeting, I have to ask that question, and I've learned to not be afraid to tell somebody that their budget is unrealistic, and obviously it's a sensitive subject, but as long as you explain and as long as you have backup with what you're saying, if somebody says to me, "Oh, I want a really simple party in my garden. It's only for 120 people," and there's not a sit down, so the ultimate in people's brains, they think, oh, if you don't have a sit-down party, it must be cheaper.
Yeah.
So they'll say, I'm having a stand-up party for 180 people in my garden, so it's only a small tent, but we still want canapes, and we still want drinks, and we still want entertainment, and we still want. By the time you've added all that up, and then they tell me their budget is 10 grand. It's not going to happen. So from that point, when I have that first meeting and we start discussing the things that they want, if they say to me, my budget is between this and this, straight away I will say, that is not a realistic budget. Let me explain why. And then sometimes I put together a quick document to say, just look at ballparks. The food alone for 180 people.
That's always the starting point.
That's it. That's my starting point. I say, let's talk about food.
It's what the main people want. Generally, no disrespect to everyone else's industries here,
true.
But it's kind of what the main...
Well, you can't not have food.
You can't not have food.
No. I mean, it'd be a great disco in the 80s.
And if you say to people, so would you want to take your friends out for dinner for £10 a head? No, you would not. No. You wouldn't expect canapes, starters, mains, desserts, and your drinks
and served
for 10 and served with staff. You wouldn't want that for £10 or £15 a head. So if you start at that price, immediately you times it by 180. There's your starting budget right there.
Yeah, I know from our perspective that we really respect clients and their budgets, because however we dress this up, aside from buying a house, aside from buying a car, possibly the parties that are thrown by our clients at whatever level it is a ginormous amount of money, whether it be 10, 15, 25 or 100 to infinity.
It's all relative, isn't it?
It is all relative, isn't it?
It's out of their personal income as well. It's not a corporate. I mean, with corporate, the corporate pound has a very different sensitivity.
Very much.
Private wealth.
Speaking of corporates, I mean, you just said before we came on air that you're running an event now for the next how many days?
11 days at Natural History Museum.
I mean,
in the Earthals. Yeah, and they're all corporate, and it's the corporate credit card pays for it. So whether they're drinking Krug or whether they're drinking, House, they don't worry whether it's X this much or that much. But you do on a private party.
Yes,
very
absolutely.
Much, because then there's the 20% VAT.
Which is always a question.
Yeah.
Dare we say it? I mean, we've had to survive that for very, very many years of dealing with. And I understand that people are spending their own private money, and all of a sudden 20% is 20%, but very little we can do around those sort of things. Sophie, from your perspective, when it comes to sort of the creativity around creating the invitations and the stationery, how do you sort of take the brief and creatively come up with sort of different ideas?
Well, I kind of test myself. So I always try and nail it very quickly. That's my test to myself. So when somebody comes in, I automatically, within 5 minutes, tend to have an idea in mind of what I think they might like.
I know you brought a bag of tricks with you. I was looking down here. It's not here. Where's your little bag of tricks?
I mean, it's not.
Is it like a bag of carpet cells?
Well, it kind of is. Like when you're dealing with media, it's very easy to throw up images on the screen and videos.
I don't even know what I've got.
But Sophie's really boss. You keep talking, and I'll just have a play. Go on.
I think what I tend to do in answer to your question is I tend to, if I'm working with an event planner, I will always ask them if they have any sort of direction or any sort of mood board in mind for this event. So it would always be, what's their style? What's their vibe? Are they quite classic? Are they quite elegant? Do they like something a bit more fun? Are they quite fashion led? Are they young? Are they older? What's the venue? What's the guest list? That I think tells a lot. And from that point, I actually put together mood boards based on that conversation, which could be, it could be anything from a very, very simple invitation all the way through to something very styled and very, bespoke.
Talking of styling and bespoke, I'm sitting with a box in front of me. Let me just go back to the main camera, which basically is, I mean, it's pretty special, but it's a beautifully presented box. So I just dropped it. And inside, I hope you can see that, there's a lovely piece of paper with some
silver
engraving sort of pictures. Then there's a quill.
Yeah, it was
some ink.
That was for an event in Paris that we did with Silver Fox Events.
Okay.
It was last year. Funny that you should pick that one out as the first one, but it was.
It's because it was the biggest.
It was for a lovely family. It was for a 50th birthday. They wanted like a Parisian French theme, like a, quite a historical theme. They had it in the most wonderful venue. I think I've ever been in. That's a more recent one.
Well, this is topical because actually, although this podcast is going out in January, this is a party that I am doing this Saturday
weekend,
with you.
That's why
absolutely.
I bought it.
This is and I love this. We've had to animate this for the screens and bring it all to life. But in terms of the colour palette and everything else,
that's lovely.
That's amazing.
Really beautiful.
Really beautiful.
Do you know what? It's just I actually know the family and they're lovely. But I also know the daughter quite well because she's actually friends with my daughter. I know what she's like, so that always helps. But we came up with this sort of celestial kind of. It's obviously a December party, and we wanted it to feel magical but not too Christmassy. So we came up with this colour palette of like a Cadbury's purple, if you like, but to sort of lift it with golds, and we wanted it to feel kind of twinkly, starlighty. But the challenge is always trying to make something feel luxe and also something that an adult would also like to look at, as well as something a child would like to look at. This is for a bat mitzvah, which is and you have to find that balance as well as making it feel luxe, keeping it in budget, having it on time, making no mistakes, obviously, and it's there's a lot of parts that have to be
from a creative perspective though. When I look at this, I look at this creatively thinking we're going to animate for this for the screen, and this literally sings and dances to me.
It does.
Because when you see on Saturday night or you in the past, but what we've done to this to animate this and brought all the stars to life and the beautiful font and everything on the back, it looks absolutely incredible. So I'm super excited for that.
Also, can I say, when I've worked with Sophie on creative levels with her before for planning and designing and styling the room, will actually tie in with what Sophie's done a lot of the time. So if she's come up with a colour palette, we then will take that forward for the rest of the party.
It is quite
in terms of cloths and flowers and colours in the room, the stage set, all of it will tie in essentially to your stationery.
Well, and essentially, so does our film
and then
post that as well. And in terms of the graphics we create for the screens, and also perhaps maybe the menus inside the films at the end, all tie back to the original design.
But I think that's working. That's working with a great team of people who you can have those conversations with, and you can pick the phone up and say to the florist, to the event planner, to the printer, to the designer, and just say, okay, what colour linen do you think we should use? Or and you'll pick something up so small, but it then becomes the main the hook, doesn't it? And it's that whole, but it's working collaborative, I think, as well.
And I love working with my friends in the industry because we all want to do a good job together.
Totally.
We all enjoy. I have no qualms in picking up the phone and asking for advice on exactly that. What do you think I should do here? And then
I think we've all worked with people that have a huge personality and won't listen. And it just doesn't, and it generally doesn't work because
need to let people get on with their jobs.
Employ the right people to do the right bits, and it all works. Rather than trying to control
should do.
The planner
should
the planner is obviously the link and the anchor, as in they will bring in the team that they believe will make this party what it needs to be, both on a budget level, design level, every aspect. And obviously Aarti's got a great big black book of people that she can call upon, but to choose the right people to make it work on all those levels is not it's not an easy thing.
Put on a job and you're taken to a client and the client says, great to meet you, we want to work with you, and I say, are you working with a planner? And they say, oh yeah, I've got Aarti on, and I've got Sophie from Ruth Kaye, and Paul Jackson's taking care of you. Instantly
relief.
It's definitely relief. It's definitely a sense of like, I know for me, we did an event a couple of weeks ago together. There is nothing more warming, the hairs on my arms are going, than turning up and seeing everybody on a job
100%.
together. Because it's proper family.
Love it.
Full family.
And by the way, we have 5 families. There's a whole combination when we have our other get-togethers with other people. It does feel like, and definitely there's a sense of when that doesn't work as well. When you get put into a scenario.
Yes. Well, sometimes, which I've now stopped doing. I used to, when I first started freelancing, I was being booked a lot just to run a wedding on the day. Just turn up on the day.
Which is something I want to talk about.
Oh, awful.
And I won't do it I won't do it anymore because I have turned up at venues, been given a timesheet with 10 suppliers that I've never worked with before. They don't know who I am. There's no relationship there whatsoever. So when I'm the person that has to tell people what to do, they don't care. They were like, who are you?
Unless you've assembled your own Avengers team.
Absolutely. And I've done it a few times because I was scared. I was taking on lots of work. I was just saying yes to everything that came my way. And And it was that learning curve of when you're freelance, you at the beginning, you just say yes to everything. And then you slowly over the years start working out what works and what doesn't. For you, it might not be for everyone. For me, I now tell clients I do not turn up on the day. I'm sorry.
Like any industry or business or job, you can't buy experience.
No.
And when someone says to me, for example, maybe that's quite expensive. And I say, because that's 30 years of knowledge of knowing how this is put together.
Exactly.
And that's what you're buying into, not just the fact that you're receiving X, Y, and Z. You have to understand we've done this a million times before, and never more so than for planners.
Yes, exactly.
Because the amount that can go wrong, and quite often does, that clients are completely unaware of, is actually, I think, is astounding.
And also, when I speak to people, I'm just me. So I come up against brands and bigger companies that have an office and people behind them. But I will tell my clients now, I've learned from those people.
Well, you worked for them.
I worked for, Banana Split was the beginning, but I was with Dream Events the longest as an employed member of staff there. I think I was there for 8 years, 6 or 8 years.
That comes with a medal, by the way.
Sorry,
Matthew.
I love Matthew. I'm telling you now, he's wonderful, and he's taught me so much. I owe so much to him and other companies that I've worked with, but definitely Dream Events was
someone who can remain calm.
Yeah, he's calm.
In adversity,
completely.
He is a master.
He is
unflappable.
He is unflappable, and he's amazing. And I adore him and the company, and I love working with them. But the experience that I've received from standing back and watching the pros, you take.
But you
it
say
on.
it like you're not a pro.
But I know
because you are.
Imposter
you
syndrome.
are a pro.
we all suffer from that.
Imposter syndrome. It is awful.
I can't do that.
It's
awful.
I won't go into the female versus male issue in the industry, but there is that as well for me.
Oh, really?
For sure.
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't see so many female videographers, I have to be honest.
Yeah, it's tricky. So, and when you're up against people that say, "Why would I don't know?" I found
Paul
it
said
quite
it
hard.
earlier. People buy people.
They do.
They do.
And I know when I've been in a position where there are definitely clients who come along and say, "I do not want to use X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z, X, Y. Can you recommend somebody?" And there's Aarti, because event professional has done jobs. We've worked together on jobs before, and you bring all that experience without the baggage as well.
Yes,
sometimes.
Yes,
I
exactly.
completely agree.
Does that help when it comes to pricing things? I mean, how? Because I would imagine from a client perspective, they think, okay, here comes Aarti. She has a little company. Her overheads are lower. She must be cheaper.
Yeah.
How does that work? Do you feel undervalued sometimes?
Yes, I do. But that comes from being able to. The thing is, I always remember I'm a luxury for people. When they book a planner, everything else has to happen. All the food and things, the food, the entertainment, the venue, all those things. This is how I take it.
I disagree.
Do you?
Yes.
I feel that I'm the person that they probably think they might not need.
It's like having an interior designer, and I always say to people with planning, like you're paying for somebody to run it, but you will get better prices. You'll get what you want. You'll get it in budget. You'll have it on time. It's not. I don't see it as a luxury.
I think they'll save they'll save that fee.
Yeah, or at least the same.
Yeah.
Because, cheap is dear. You'll end up like spending money on things that a planner would say you don't need it. Or,
Sophie, you're full of wise quotes.
Yeah.
Cheap is dear. I love that.
No, it's true.
Spectacular.
I think a planner is a great thing.
Well, that is something, again, one of my learning curve, especially after lockdown, when I lost my career completely. I really came back when the events industry kicked back in. That's when I decided, do you know what? I have to start knowing my worth now, and I didn't for a long time. And I think that's been a problem for me. My own business and building up, even things like social media. I'm not as good as I should be.
Which is why you're here, because we're giving you every helping hand.
I'm terrible at things like that, so I don't even have a website. Sorry, but I'm working on it, and I'm going to do it, and I have goals. But one of the things that I forced myself to do was change my fee, work out what my worth is, stick to it, There's no negotiation now. I have put my foot down and said no. If you don't want to pay, by the way, my quite minimal fee, then find someone else.
The secret world of events, not that there's so many secrets, but I think one of the things that I'd want to discuss is transparency, because I feel like there's always this thing from clients that things aren't transparent. But the way you do things is probably quite the opposite of that. You're very transparent.
Yes, completely.
So you work on a kind of like a fee basis.
Yes, I'll do like a management fee. And there's various options. Some people use me to organise the entire event from start to finish. So I'll be doing venue searching and then getting all the suppliers, introduce them to everybody. And again, that's where the opportunity is. I can bring in people that I enjoy working with, people that I trust, and advise them. If they come to me with suppliers that I don't know, I'll just be honest with them and say, I don't know who they are. If you're happy with that, that's fine, and we can meet them and then work through that way.
I think that's one of the big points, Paul, is trusted networks. People's trust. If you're being employed and asked to bring in for you, it's catering staff. You probably know the right agencies to bring in the right staff. And if a client said to you, actually, that's £2 an hour too expensive, can you use? Yeah, you may not get the quality you want. So
I think ultimately, my belief is you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
And if you, I mean,
and I love proving clients
wrong
when
too, but without being grand about it as well. You just have to be, it's very much like. But I think again, even as a supplier, we still have people that supply us, and it's again you buying that knowledge and that trust. When I need 50 staff to arrive at whatever time, wherever, and you just have to. I don't question it. Mm-hmm. Yes, there might be, you say £2 more per hour expensive, but they'll be smart. They'll arrive on time. They'll do what you ask.
I think people also undervalue, and I'm not necessarily from my side of things, but from everybody else's side of things at the table here, the amount of time. If we were lawyers and had to clock the hours that we had to do behind the scenes,
midnight every night at the minimum.
Me too. But the thing is, this is where the events industry. This is the issue. There's no bar of an hour. So if you're in PR, you know that there's an hourly rate. So if I were to hire a PR agency, they'd say, "Oh, it's £250 an hour." Nobody would pay me £250 an hour. No.
Me too.
I'm lucky if I get that a day. Sometimes on admin level, it's so undervalued what we do and our hours and the time that we put it in. And as Sophie said, I'm working all hours. Put my children to bed, start working at 9 o'clock at night.
That's when my admin starts.
I know Sophie's side of the world as well from a creative perspective. And we as individuals and as companies are up all night taking care of things with very short time scales to turn around, because the client may have changed their mind on something. And whether it's print, not print, something has to be done.
I also think that a lot of these people also have jobs, and a lot of the time when they get to sit down and go through a guest list, sit down and make some decisions, look at the budget, that tends to be in the evening as well. And unfortunately, you lose those 12 hours while you're sleeping, and it's basically another day lost, really.
And it's part of our job. So when I've had to organise meetings, and they'll say, we can only do meetings after 6 o'clock at night because that we're working. And I kind of want to say, well, I'm working, but I have to start my day at 6 o'clock at night for you. But it comes with the job.
It does come with
the
territory.
So you don't mind really, but you wouldn't make it.
I have to say, I do less face-to-face meetings now. A lot of my work is done remotely, and it actually works really well. Like I don't actually...
Is that since COVID?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Zoom,
like it was, there was no question about, as soon as I got a call from a client through an event planner or privately, directly, first thing is book a meeting, like face to face. I would say only 20% I do, but I see face to face at that point.
So, as well as invitations, tell us what else you do, Sophie, just so we can, public get to hear.
We do printing and stationery, but I think obviously that also incorporates things like branding, as you said, for the event, logo design, like branding for the event. So, hand painted monograms or graphically designed monograms from the scratch. So either they're hand drawn, they're done on a computer program, and that becomes sort of the base of the event. So I do work very closely with event planners at that level, and I actually have no idea. I never compare myself to other companies that do what I do at all. My mum taught me that. I should never just do what you do. So I don't know if people work so closely on that level with other planners, but I do. So we come up with, along with the planner, like a look, a feel, a brand identity for the event. So that then obviously translates into print. So either we do an electronic invitation, which, by the way, is not, well, you know, it's not the normal. It's not
invites.
just a static thing on the screen anymore. It's animated. It's moving. So we do that. Save the date cards. Then we move on to the main invitation, which includes the full package from, invitations, RSVP cards, information cards, blah, blah, blah.
What always got me, and why we used you as when we were a client of yours, was just the ingenuity of what you could achieve.
I know, but I'm not clever by doing that, because my factories all hate me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I give myself complete nervous breakdowns every single time, and I do push the boundaries. So.
What would we give, as if we said our 3 top tips for the audience who may be having a wedding coming up, or having a corporate event, or having some kind of celebration? What would we'll say collectively our 3 top tips are when starting that journey?
Budget.
I was going to say budget.
It's a great starting point.
Really?
It is, because you can set yourself up to fail big
budget.
time. Yeah.
A realistic budget. I think getting advice
and by the
from
way,
somebody
that doesn't matter if your realistic budget is £5,000 or £500,000.
Absolutely not.
Be realistic with
you just need to know what that's going to get. If that is genuinely your top, benchmark, and you can only spend 10 grand, that's okay. There are venues which will have a minimum spend, including the room and food and beverage, for 7 grand. You can find it, but you've got to do your research and you've got to ask the right questions.
Yeah. What would our second tip be? What do you think, Sophie?
I mean, I know it's cliche and some people roll their eyes, but for me, if somebody puts together some sort of Pinterest or mood board of the kind of thing they like, or things they don't like.
Have an idea.
For me, if you show me something you don't like, I automatically know what you do like. So for me, it's if you don't know what you like, and because you've never done this before, just think about things you hate, and then that will kind of guide me. So for me, budget is really important, because we do everything completely from scratch, bespoke, custom. I always say to people, doesn't matter what your budget is, I can design to it, but unless you've got 3 years to get there, if you want something done quickly, tell me what the money is, because then we'll get there quicker. And then obviously some sort of direction on the look and feel, or the dislike.
What about trusting your supplier? Trusting your supplier. If you book someone to work with,
time as well.
If you book that supplier, let them do their job. Let them tell you and advise you. It is such a huge issue where some people just don't want to let go. And it's not about, even as a planner, I know that there's a fear that we might take over and then the bride might not get to plan her own wedding. It's not like that at all. We're working together. We're working for the bride and groom and the family. We'll work together, but once you've employed that supplier to do that, let them advise you and do their job. Really,
I couldn't agree more. Because at the end of the day, we're all working to the best advantage of our client as a team.
We want the event to go well. Yeah. We don't want it to fail.
The client gets a much better party themselves personally if they let it go.
Yes, completely.
I'm going to put everybody on the spot now. This is a really difficult one. It's a difficult one because you probably can't think of one off the top of your head. If I said to you, Paul, best and most memorable event you've ever been a part of?
I did a private dinner for the Queen.
Oh,
I love that.
That's the win. You win. We almost went mic drop. Let's go home.
And I didn't know she was coming.
Hold on. How do you do a dinner for the Queen and not know she's coming?
We had I worked for a titled family down in their country estate, and
incredible.
I was working as under butler, and I got the call and just said, "Oh, can you go and let the last 2 guests that are on the estate? Can you go to the front door and let them in?"
Oh my lord!
This green Jaguar arrived, pulled up the front door, didn't pay any attention, opened the front door, and there's the Queen, Duke of Edinburgh.
How long ago?
Oh God, nearly 20 years ago, probably.
Wow.
He was driving, she was in the front.
20 years and it never got topped. That's amazing.
Yeah.
We're bearing in mind all the things I know you've seen.
So yeah, that was my best. And then you just take her in and she mixes her own drinks.
Oh, no, wow. She didn't.
And I have the retiring guidance from Buckingham Palace.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Wow.
That
so
wins.
She doesn't drink wine.
Could have ended with him, Gavin.
She drinks a very, very strong gin martini.
Yes,
fantastic.
Queen.
Love it.
That's
why she lived so long.
Yeah, exactly. What about for you, Aarti?
Oh gosh, I
don't. Doesn't have to be one of your own.
Do you know what?
I'll get in trouble if
I've got to say, my first ever event when I was first starting. I think I was 24, and I was thrown into this big job with my first job, and it was abroad. And the first night we had George Benson performing on a Friday night, just as he does. And then the Saturday we had, I think it was Earth, Wind and Fire and Dionne Warwick or something, and Rod Stewart and Tom Jones,
as you do,
all in the same weekend.
Wow.
Jeepers creepers.
So
That's unbelievable.
it was like I was in a world that I could not believe I was in. It was. I would never forget that. Surreal. I would never forget standing there and seeing what I was seeing, thinking, this is what I'm going to do.
Sophie, probably hard for you because you do so many. But is there particularly one that you thought that really stretched the boundaries of creativity and you delivered and it was unbelievable?
Oh my gosh.
Or is it just too hard to say?
I mean, that is quite difficult. I mean, yeah, I would
say is there a favourite type? Is there a favourite type of stationery invitation you like to make?
Well, I like to do something different every time. But as I said, it's to my own detriment. And my whole family's detriment. Divorce on the cards, and all my factories just roll their eyes when I call. But I do like to push the boundaries. So anything that's sort of something a bit different.
One thing I would say is we are all exceptionally blessed to be in a position where we are at some incredible events.
Yes.
Surrounded lots of occasions by some very lovely people, and on some other occasions it's hard work.
They're less lovely.
Well, I just remember doing a job abroad with both of you where I think it was like 21-hour days for all of us. It was literally no sleep for 3 days, and you have to then have, you get dressed for the event time as well because you are working all through the day and all through the night. It's extremely tiring, and it's very rewarding when you look back at it. But I remember at the time thinking, this is hard.
But I love my job.
Yeah,
I love it. And not many people can say that.
That's fantastic. We've got some questions in from Instagram I'm going to throw over to all of you. Okay, so if you have a little look at the screens, let's have a look at question 1. Art and Curation asks, this is for you, Aarti, why do I need a planner when the caterer does the same job?
Do we do the same job? No, I'd rather have a planner.
And also, a lot of people think sorry venues, but a lot of venues sell themselves as planners as well.
Yes.
Which actually... it's not the same. I would say planners, we are much more personable in terms of we get involved in every aspect of the party, and we will make sure we're involved at all the points of the party.
Well, in the kosher world, most caterers would look at themselves as planners as well, or have planning divisions or planning arms.
But a lot of people are doing it. The bands are doing it now.
Yep.
The caterers are doing it, and the venues are doing it.
Yeah. But do you think that's because they've been asked to do it?
Well, they are
point of payment.
They're probably a bit cheaper, actually, because they'll say, well, we've got a planner.
But also, they tend to use the same people.
Yes.
They use like a structure that's why they're less expensive.
Yeah, but the thing is, they won't come to every single meeting.
No,
they're
not available till midnight.
If I'm booked as a planner, and I'm expected to go to every single meeting, I'll go. But you wouldn't get a caterer or a band. Maybe you would. I mean, I don't know how they work, but there's...
Let's flick on to the next one. This is from Billy Day. What's the most stressful thing about your job, Paul?
Oh, my God.
Getting it all there on time.
Sophie?
Oh, my God. Where do I begin? Honestly, from delivering the first mood board all the way through to not making a mistake in your proofing, all the way through to... thinking ahead, 3 steps ahead of what they want every time, to delivering on time correctly, for the postage, the stamps. I mean, it is...
Sophie, your stress list is
long. I mean, honestly, the anxiety is out the window.
Aarti, for you?
I think for me, it's just hoping that the suppliers turn up on the day. I just think,
Have you had that when
I hope a van doesn't... Well, we've had vans breaking down with all the equipment in it.
I had something
so it's like, if a van's broken down on the motorway or there was an accident, what do you do? So there again, it's just
never let the client know.
Never let anyone know anything. They don't know anything that goes on behind the scenes.
Afterwards, they have a hearty laugh.
Afterwards, it's brilliant. I love telling them, just so you know, all this happened today, but none of you knew.
My team laugh when I say, please WhatsApp me when you get to the venue.
Yeah,
because I cannot stop having anxiety until I know everybody's on site,
everyone's there,
and they're maybe ahead of me getting there, because it's always. And also on the Monday before, when you tell everybody, remind everybody, this Saturday coming, we've got this job, and you wait a day for a reply because somebody didn't see their email. You're like,
one tick.
You do know you're working this weekend. Next question up, from Kaylee Louise. Where is the best location you've worked abroad, and why?
So many.
Paul.
I was probably with you.
I really loved Greece.
I loved Greece.
I loved Greece.
I loved it.
Yeah, that hotel. I mean, if I could have lived there.
I mean, it was in the middle of nowhere.
The Amanzoe, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
Amanzoe.
beautiful.
Like
and the
3
smell.
hours.
There's a real herby smell when you kind of drove in, and you're like, it was really magical.
That was
for me also the crowd.
Yes,
really made that part.
The best client.
They were the best people. That every part of their group were very appreciative and respectful and courteous and happy to see you.
So grateful. Yeah. They were so grateful. All the guests were grateful.
Yeah. That's lovely.
The host and hostess were grateful. We felt
I
very
sewed her into a dress.
Oh yeah, I remember.
That's right.
She came down and overzipped. Had been overzipped.
Oh no, gosh!
But it would be for a whole nother podcast, because I do remember the night of the main party when the wind got up.
Oh, I remember.
And we all thought,
I've been told about that one.
That's something. Yeah. Anyway, we'll leave that for another time.
We should do one about things that have gone wrong.
Yeah.
Things that we fixed.
Yeah. Where was the best location you've worked?
Well, I did love the Paris one.
Yeah.
When I went to that event. I mean, as I said, I go to a lot of events, not necessarily the overseas one, but the Paris one was amazing.
Hyde House asks, how much is the average band these days? Aarti, that's probably for you. That's hard, isn't it? You can't say what's an average band.
That's a bit tricky.
There's such a thing as average?
Well, let's put a starting point. Let's pick a band. Let's pick a band. I don't know. Let's pick a band.
God,
do you know the prices of bands?
Well, not probably.
Well, do bands start at like $3,000 or they start at $5,000? Is a Musica a 15 or a 25?
Oh, the Musica is the top of the top.
Yeah.
But I would say like the DJ live bands.
Yeah.
Probably start at about 8.
Okay.
Onwards for like one of the high end, for a good setup, the high end, and that doesn't include sound.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's not. It's not just.
It's the band.
It's the band.
And that's what happens when you talk to clients about managing budgets. I know when we speak to a client about making a video, the first for the party, the first thing we say is, "Well, how are you showing this? Because by the way, that could put £5,000 or £7,000, or depending on what you're having, could be £500.
Yeah.
But let's build all this up."
But even a DJ, they'll say, "I have a DJ. I'm not going to book a DJ for £300.
Yeah,
it's probably not going to be very good.
Yeah.
So the DJs are going to start at 1,000.
Yeah.
Plus, then they'll say, "Can we have a musician?" Well, each musician's going to be paid $750. Yeah. Or $800.
It does seem amazing though when you think how much the average band, and then you've got to worry about the sound.
Yeah.
Like
I know.
All the kit.
Well, that's why you need a planner, because you wouldn't know.
Absolutely. And the other thing amazes me, and I still have to say it, DJs that don't speak.
Oh, yeah.
It's a bone of contention with me, because back in the day, and I'm going back to the mid-80s, I DJed for Banana Split. For Banana Split. That's where life started.
Everyone used to DJ.
Everyone DJed for Banana Split.
Everyone DJed at Banana Split.
Literally, it was like child labour.
Yeah.
Julian would get everybody in, pay you absolutely nothing, charge you out. I've got pictures
I'll buy you dinner.
Absolutely. Next question. Is there one piece of advice you would give all clients you work with?
I think we've covered that. It's about trusting.
Yeah, I think we've covered that.
Trust people.
And
trust
our last
your team.
question. How much of my budget should I spend on food as a percentage?
All of it.
Most of it.
That's quite an interest. That's a difficult one, because
is there a calculation to that?
I don't actually think I've ever done that.
But do you not, when you do a budget for people, do you not split it?
I start at the food.
I would have thought it's more than a third.
I start at the food. It's more, I
but
think.
it's all about how big's the budget, I suppose, isn't it, really?
No, but as a percentage.
It shouldn't change as a percentage, should it? Oh, mind you, if you're spending £1 million having Barry Manilow or something,
exactly.
then I guess it's going to be a smaller percentage.
And you've got an artist to spend.
Yeah.
Yes. Or let's just say at a standard party, if you were spending £100,000 at a party, what depends on the head? I don't know.
It depends. I mean, it really can't. It's just there's
no standard formula for this.
There isn't. No.
You might want food trucks outside.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joanna, we have absolutely no definitive answer. Guys, we've literally run out of time. It's been fantastic having you all along today. Thank you so much for coming down. I know how nervous every single one of you was. I hope you enjoyed that episode of The Secret World of Events. If you have any comments about the show, please do leave them below. And of course, if you have any questions at all for future episodes, please do drop us a DM or email us info@gavsymedia.com. But for now, we'll catch you on the next episode of The Secret World of Events. Great to have you here.
I had decided I wanted to get into events.
Don't rush into anything.
Left university and pretty much went straight into it.
It's just got to happen. So do what you need to make it happen.
I've never been one to follow rules.
We've spent a lot of time together, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Always keeping up with trends and fads.
How do you manage that, the expectations versus the reality of budgeting?
It's always insightful to get a gauge as to what their reference point is with budget.
Pre-COVID, I didn't know what Zoom was.
You know, everything is done to a higher level.
That detail Jeremy and the band and the guys will go into, by definition, makes our life easier.
There's levels and levels, and that comes in the detail.